listener production.
Hello, welcome to The Briefing. Sacha Barbour Gatt with you. Changes are coming that are designed to keep political parties honest about who is giving the money and just how much. But questions remain about some of the other sneaky ways they can be influenced by people with cash.
If you look at the cash for access payments that we know about, it often only costs a few $1,000s to get a privileged access to a minister and have this kind of intimate face-to-face connection.
That deep dive into how to buy a politician is coming up in the second half of this episode. First, let's get into the headlines with Chris Spiro. It is Thursday, the 5th of February.
Morning, Sash. The future of the coalition is in even greater doubt today after another round of peace talks between the Liberal and Nationals leaders failed. Susan Lee and David Littleproud met before question time yesterday, but word is neither are prepared to go back on their demands. The biggest issue between them is reportedly Lee's decision to accept the resignations of 3 Nationals frontbenchers who crossed the floor on Labor's hate speech bill. Even though the coalition's shadow cabinet had agreed to support the laws, the Nats want Lee to reinstate the trio. She's not willing to budge on that and will instead ban them from the front bench for 6 months, according to reports.
A reminder, they resigned under the principle of cabinet solidarity. So once the cabinet decides to support a bill, all members must publicly back it, even if it goes against what they personally believe. So what happens next is the question. Well, senior Liberals claim Lee is ready to announce a Liberal-only frontbench and promote 6 MPs to the shadow cabinet to not only make up the places of the absent Nats, but also, Chris, to firm up her position as leader by elevating members who support her. Of course, we know Angus Taylor is still weighing up a tilt at the leadership. That could happen as soon as next week. So, yeah, we could be looking at a permanent split of the coalition, which would be significant because this alliance formed all the way back in 1923, more than 100 years, and they've been the centre of conservative politics in this country. The Nats, which was the Country Party representing regional and rural Australians, and of course the Liberals who represented, more conservatives who lived in perhaps more metropolitan areas. And, they've held sway in government for huge pockets of time in Australian history. In fact, there's only been really kind of small gaps where Labor has taken over and been in charge. So this would be quite big if they can't get it together. As always with these stories, time will tell how it unfolds.
To the US now, and the man who tried to assassinate Donald Trump as he golfed at his Florida course has been sentenced to life behind bars. Ryan Routh was found guilty last year of the attempted killing after a rifle was spotted poking out of the bushes near where the then presidential candidate had been playing.
The 59-year-old pleaded not guilty and represented himself at the trial, acting erratically throughout, including challenging Trump to a game of golf and referencing Hitler and Vladimir Putin. The incident in Florida was the second attempt on Trump's life in 2024 after a gunman opened fire at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania in July of that year.
Bill Gates has spoken publicly for the first time after he was named in the latest batch of Epstein files, saying he regrets ever coming into contact with the convicted sex offender. Among the 3 million documents released by the US government last week were files suggesting the Microsoft co-founder met with Epstein on multiple occasions after his 2008 prison sentence, and a claim that Gates had contracted an STD from, quote, Russian girls and wanted to secretly give his then wife antibiotics.
Apparently, Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there, but, it just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I apologize that I did that.
That audio thanks to Nine. And he also spoke about the level of contact he shared with Epstein in those years.
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Now, his response comes after his ex-wife Melinda French Gates appeared on an NPR podcast and called on him to answer questions about the allegations.
For me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because it brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that. I'm in a really unexpected, beautiful place in my life. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
The pair were married for 27 years before they divorced back in 2021, at the time confirming Bill had previously had an affair with a Microsoft staffer. In the interview, Melinda said the allegations of child sexual abuse were beyond heartbreaking, and she also called for justice for Epstein's victims.
To Melbourne now, where a prominent neo-Nazi has become Australia's first person to be jailed for performing a Nazi salute. 26-year-old Jacob Hersant performed the salute outside the Melbourne County Court in October 2023 while standing next to fellow neo-Nazi Thomas Sewell, just days after the state banned public displays of the symbol.
Oh, I nearly did it. It's illegal now, isn't it?
Hersant was first convicted and sentenced to a month behind bars in November 2024, but was released on bail after appealing, and his appeal failed in December last year, and he returned to court yesterday for sentencing. His legal team argued he shouldn't cop any prison time and that he was a wonderful father who had been provoked by the media.
But the judge said the salute was calculated and designed to send a chilling message to the community. The 26-year-old was resentenced to a month in jail and fined $1,000 for breaching a community corrections order by performing the salute. Now, he has flagged his intention to appeal, and if he were to appeal, that would have to go to the High Court.
To some much lighter and happier news, Australia's flag bearers have been named for the upcoming Winter Olympics, which officially kick off tomorrow. Moguls skiers Jakara Anthony and Matt Graham chosen to lead the Aussie team out at the Milano Cortina Games opening ceremony. Both have won medals at previous games, Anthony breaking a more than 10-year hoodoo to win Australia's first gold at the Winter Olympics in Beijing back in 2022.
Yes, and Graham meantime claimed silver at Pyeongchang in 2018 and says at 31 this might be his last chance at gold. A record Aussie medal haul could be on the cards in Italy though, Australia sending its second biggest team with 53 athletes competing. We finished 18th in 2022 with 1 gold, 2 silver and 1 bronze. So who knows what we've got in store? And I don't know, Sash, I'm not a Winter Olympics boy. I don't think I've ever actually properly sat down to watch them. I do like the ones where they go on the ramp and they go whoosh.
Yeah, big jump.
What a perfect description. What an accurate academic description.
Yeah, that's obviously it. The curling's also good if you need to go to sleep.
Yeah, okay. There you heard it here first.
No. Oh, well, the Aussie team didn't qualify, so genuinely there's no reason to watch the curling this year.
Yeah, fair enough.
Go Aussie. We love it.
We're back in the min. We're back in the min.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We love Winter Olympics. Woo!
And finishing in China today, where an unlikely character has become a symbol for the country's New Year celebrations.
And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy.
Yes, everyone's favourite wizarding villain Draco Malfoy is appearing on Lunar New Year themed decorations and merch across China this year. Why? I hear you screaming into the void. It's because of how his name is translated in Mandarin.
Yes, Malfoy becomes, and please, I apologise to any Mandarin listeners or people who know how this language sounds. I'm going to do my very, very best to get this right. It's pronounced Marar Fu. Mar becomes horse and Fu means fortune. So when you put them together, you roughly get horse fortune. And 2026 is the year of the horse or fire horse. So Malfoy is being seen as an auspicious figure for the year ahead. So there you go. And I've seen the footage, these pictures. It's this huge red banner in a Chinese shopping centre with, the Chinese writing down the side. And just a huge Draco Malfoy face. And they've chosen him as the 11-year-old version, the fresh-faced young Draco. And Tom Felton, who played Draco in the movies, has actually reposted it as well. So,
I love that. We'll pop a link. We'll pop the actual image to that in our broadcast channel on Instagram, Behind the Briefing Podcast. And look, this is the year of the fire horse. Last year was the year of the snake. We have shed our skin and we are ready to take 2026 by the, what do they say?
Ghoulies?
But yeah, sure, that thing. Okay, I'm done. Get us out of here.
Okay, let's go. Next up, we are going to do a deep dive, and it's looking into political donations. A bunch of rules are going to change how things currently are set up, but there's still a lot of ways you can buy political influence in Australia. Find out how next. There's so much that goes into a successful political campaign. Catchy lines, clever visuals, a prop, attack ads, maybe a good policy or two. That's stuff that we as members of the public can see. What we can't see, though, are all the sneaky dollars that go into bringing these campaigns to life. This week, the Australian Electoral Commission released its latest round of data into political donations, revealing just how much cash our political parties were handed in the 2024-25 financial year. And while we can trawl through the list of people and businesses who have handed out the most money, there's tens of millions of dollars in so-called dark money that we don't know the origin of. And it's perfectly legal. Now, the laws around it are about to change, but there are questions about how effective they'll be in reining in the amount of dark dollars our pollies can access. Joining me now to discuss is the Australia's Institute, Bill Browne. He's the Director of the Democracy and Accountability Program. Bill, welcome to the briefing. Look, we did talk about it in our headlines this week, but I'm keen to know what caught your eye the most from this latest report from the AEC.
One thing that stood out to me was that the amount of money that political parties are raising and spending has increased yet again. If you look over the last 3 years, so one federal election cycle, you're looking at $880 million spent by political parties on federal, state and territory politics.
Yeah, it's an obviously significant number, to put it mildly. Look, we know the big names that kind of come out every time that there's some big drop of, political donor data. We've got the Clive Palmers, the Gina Rineharts, more recently Climate 200. But is there anyone on this list that you don't think is getting enough attention?
One thing that was quite interesting was to see that the second largest political donor was Coal Australia, which is a fairly small, in terms of membership, lobby group for a few coal companies, as well as the size of their contributions, which was about $5 million. It was also striking that most of those payments were directed not to political parties and candidates, but to third parties, particularly Australians for Prosperity. I think that points to a broader trend in Australian politics where some of the political campaigning and cut-through is being seen to exist outside of the party structure, that these third-party campaigners are getting an increasing amount of support and interest.
So let's talk about the current disclosure laws. So what are political parties currently required to do? And then we can get into the changes and then maybe some of the more secretive, quote unquote, ways that parties are able to kind of get around these disclosure laws.
On paper, political parties have to disclose political contributions that are above about $17,000, $18,000 in size. It increases with inflation. And they also report their total receipts, so all money that comes in, and their total spending, all money out. There's also requirements for donors to provide certain information, as well as those third-party campaigners I mentioned earlier. We find out about these contributions on the first working day of every February, but the numbers are for the previous financial year. So earlier this week, we found out about payments from the 1st of July 2024 to the 30th of June 2025. If you cast your mind back, that means that we're finding out now about donations that might have happened 18, 19 months ago.
So will the new laws around disclosures, which are coming in the middle of the year, by the way, on June 1st, will they address those, and how will they address those issues?
Last year, the Labor and Liberal parties teamed up to make some dramatic changes to electoral law. A lot of those changes are unfair to independents and smaller political parties. But one of the more positive changes was really tightening up transparency and the disclosure of political contributions. Instead of that roughly $17,000 threshold I mentioned, we're looking at a $5,000 disclosure cap. So a contribution of $6,000 should get disclosed. And they're also bringing in what are called real-time disclosure laws, which means that every month, if not sooner, we should find out about political contributions. That means that if a payment comes in that might be designed to influence the government's thinking, we'll find out about that at the same time that the government is announcing a decision instead of a year afterwards when the moment has passed.
And sadly, we know that the public, all of us, we have a short attention span. And if something's 12 months later, the care factor does drop significantly. So this idea of real-time disclosures, I think, it's clear that it's going to be a big game changer in this space. I have a question, and I got this while I was looking through the data, was, we know that people or businesses or groups have to disclose, the parties have to disclose if it's more than that $16,000. I think it's $16,900 is like the very specific amount. But could they get around that by making those smaller payments if it was under that? Or does it kind of come out in a total figure like Coal Australia, for example, made 5 donations worth $10,000. Therefore, we had to disclose that they donated $50,000.
So it's a bit of both. Once you've crossed over that threshold, then you'll be required to disclose smaller donations as well. But there's clear ways that you can evade that disclosure requirement. And that will be true, although to a lesser extent under these new laws as well. The most straightforward way to do that is to split up your donations. The law treats different branches of a political party as if they were different political parties. So you could give $4,000 to the Labor Party in New South Wales, another $4,000 to the Labor Party in Queensland, and so on. And with 8 or 9 branches across the country, you can give tens of thousands of dollars while staying below that disclosure threshold.
Who would want to keep that information off the public record? Like, who would be making those sort of donations?
I mean, in part, we don't know, and that's part of the problem with these laws. But knowing who does disclose their donations gives us a sense of the kinds of people who have the resources and interest in making large donations. And it includes lobby groups for industries. It includes management consultants who get business from the government. It includes wealthy individuals who have a range of different motivations for making political contributions.
What are some of the other ways that interested parties could make a donation, quote unquote, that's not formally writing a cheque for $20,000 to the Labor Party of Australia? How else can they exert that financial influence on a party?
Yeah, there's a few different ways. And one element that will never show up in these disclosures is providing support for a campaign that assists the political party but is not controlled by that political party. So if you see a lobby group getting involved in politics, perhaps through an AstroTurf organisation that sounds like it's a local group that's powered by real Australians, but behind the scenes it's actually funded and run by the lobby group, their campaigns may well assist a particular party or candidate, but they're going to show up as campaigns belonging to that interest group, not to the broader political movement that they're supporting. But as well as that, even within the party system, there's a distinction in the law between a political donation, which is given for nothing expected in return, and other kinds of political contributions. The classic one is the membership fees that large political parties charge companies in order for those companies to participate in the business forums that the parties run. Now, if you're making a payment to get access to a minister or shadow minister, that's not a donation because you're getting something in return. These payments do show up in the disclosures, or at least they should, but they're outside of the donation category. And because they're listed under the general term of other receipts, we often don't get a sense of what the reason was behind that payment. Sometimes it's innocuous. It could be something like a dividend payment because the party owns shares in that company. On the other hand, it could just as well be that company courting influence with that political party.
The donations aspect of these rules will obviously impact lobby groups, but do they have other access that potentially isn't going to be captured by these new laws? Like, are we missing something here that you think that, well, there's a big gaping hole there where they're going to be able to circumvent these new rules?
So one of the concessions that the Labor Party made in its negotiation with the Liberal Party around these transparency laws was to impose a $5,000 disclosure threshold instead of the $1,000 threshold, which is Labor Party policy. Now, if you look at the cash for access payments that we know about, it often only costs a few $1,000s to get a privileged access to a minister. For example, to be able to have dinner with a minister and have this kind of intimate face-to-face connection. So with a $5,000 threshold, we actually won't find out about the bulk of these cash for access payments that are some of the most concerning exchanges because there's a clear tit for tat agreement there. That's why the Australia Institute has suggested you should require all cash for access payments to be disclosed, regardless of how large or small they are.
Are there any other changes before we let you go that you think should be made to how people are engaging with our political parties from a financial point of view?
Well, one thing to look out for is that these new stricter disclosure laws apply to contributions that are in order to fund a federal election campaign. That's a priority for political parties, but it's by no means the only kinds of funding that they collect. A contribution that helps a party handle its administrative functions is just as able to influence a political party as a contribution for an election campaign, but we'll be stuck on the old time frame for those disclosures. That makes me worried that the picture we get is still going to be murky, even though we've had this improvement in transparency laws that'll be coming in.
Bill Browne, thank you so much for taking us through those laws. Very interesting, but clearly some big questions still remain, even with those changes coming into force.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was the Australia Institute's Bill Browne speaking with me there. We'd love to hear from you on this topic. Do you think the new laws are going to go far enough in reining in the donations and the sort of sneaky cash that pollies can get access to? Send us a DM on Insta at The Briefing Podcast. We'd love to share your thoughts in a future ep. I'm Sacha Barbour Gatt. We'll catch you next time.